And this whole week, we are counting down to Saturday when the NPP's Special Electoral College will end the presidential ambitions of at least five, in fact, not at least, exactly five of all the aspirants who are vying to lead the party into the 2024 elections. And tonight, I have one of the 10 who will come up for some decision on Saturday. Well, he is Boakye Agyarko. He is vying to be top 5 going into the primary itself later in November. So will he make it? He's been campaigning, but this is the final lap. And as you know, and as they say, last days can be dangerous. And today we've been hearing from the party about the preparedness towards that elections, but there have been concerns leading up to this. And I'll pick his thoughts on this. But why does he want to be president? We'll get to sit and hear him. If you're wondering who he is, many of you will know him. He is the former energy minister. And when he was in power, back then, as in when he was in office, back then as a power minister, he really, many say, did a lot in there because of his background. He was a banker and economist as well. And he speaks eloquently about a lot of issues in this particular area. And as you know, this is where many people know him when he was there early years of this current government. That didn't end quite well. There's a lot of controversy about this going in. Is this affecting his chances in any way? Are the delegates bringing that up at all since he served this government and, of course, his old party in many capacities in the past? But also, he's a former flag bearer hopeful, so he's done this before. I was there in 2007 when he was part of that fails that actually, on the back of that, led to this change in the party's constitution that gave birth to what we now famously call in the media the Super Delegates Congress. He's quite not a fan of this whole process of whittling down to 5. We'll ask him why pretty shortly, but join me. He's my guest. He's already seated. After this, we'll get to ask him a few questions ahead of Saturday. The man who wants to be top 5 and hopefully be the sole man standing after November 4th. He's my guest after this. And thanks for joining us. My guest, as I introduced earlier, is Boakye Agyarko. He's seeking to lead the NPP into the 2024 elections and ultimately, if he gets the nod, be the president of this great republic of ours. He's my guest. We'll come to him pretty shortly. But remember that Cherry Tree Properties, they bring you PM Express and they develop spaces as though they were going to live in themselves. Now, Syntex tanks, it is strong, it is tough. And also brought to you by Alomobites, experience greatness in every moment, and Ghana AIDS Commission. Now, let's talk about Syntex tanks for a minute, because no matter your water needs, Syntex tank has it all. Syntex tanks is first to introduce the double layer tank, and now you can have as many layers as you want. Syntex tank is first to introduce the white inner layer tanks in Ghana. We now introduce to you the customer specs order, which lets you order any color, any size or preference. Syntex tank gives you the longest warranty of 7 years, which no other tank gives you in Ghana. Whatever your water consumption, the size of the project, or whatever you're considering, so far as it has to do with water storage, please don't forget to call Syntex Tank. Call them on 0244 335 168, 0244 335 168, or shop online at syntexgh.com. Syntex Tank, A is strong, A is tough. And then Cherry Tree Properties. Desires our wishes, beauty is indeed a promise of happiness, but passion is everything. Thinking about buying a new home? Talk to those who build with passion. They have Sloane Square, is a new gated community, a development at Sakumono, developed by Cherry Tree Properties. You're one of a kind, well-planned luxury you've never experienced. You want to call them on 0553 662 366, 0553 662 366. Cherry Tree Properties, sophistication and class. I'm grateful that you could join me, Mr. Boakye Agyarko.
Thank you for having me.
You've been campaigning?
Yes.
How's it been?
It's been very good.
This is not the first time you've done this. You've done this before.
Yes.
This should be a walk in the park.
No, campaigning. I've been campaigning continuously since 2007.
Either for yourself or for others?
For others. More for others than myself. But the thing is, every campaign is different. Its requirements and its dynamics are different. Its data requirements and analytics are different. So to approach any campaign from the notes of the previous campaign is like fighting old wars. These are new wars because the requirements are different.
What are the requirements for this one? How is this one different from what you've always done?
This one is different because it's a two-stage campaign. First electorate, first college is 956 people. So you get the chance to do a more intimate contact with the electorate, the 956. Then you quickly move into a broader number of 208,000. The logistics are different. The messaging are different because there are two different interest groups within the party. The first one I would call the elite group, and the second one, not derogatively, the mass group. Their interests are not coterminous, and sometimes the interests clash. So your messaging ought to be different. Your scheduling ought to be different. The intensity of interaction also will be different. So those are the things you have to watch out.
You've achieved a lot in your life, and I showed a bit of that. Banker, economist, energy minister. Why do you want to be president?
The simple answer, I think, is the zeal for the service of my country, a passion for Ghana, and also the development of its people. I have, in my banking years, the 20 plus banking years at the Bank of New York, all my banking years was with one bank, the Bank of New York. I traveled a lot on bank business. I did a lot of work in other countries. And I've seen countries with much less than what we have do much more than what we are dreaming of. It suggests to me that we are not rising to our potential. And I believe that the presidency is the most powerful podium from which a president can assemble the best of ideas, the best of plans, the best of programs, and arrange the constellation of forces in such a way that they lead to the solution of a country's problems. So the presidency is basically the only legitimate bully pulpit from which, with good leadership, you can direct a nation's progress. That is why I seek it. I don't seek it because of the trappings of power or the enjoyment of office. I seek it simply because I take it as a sacred, leadership is a sacred duty and commitment or a covenant between the leader and the led. And it must be taken so seriously as not to infringe on the tenets of the covenant.
But everybody else I've spoken to, and I ask this question, say what you've said. Do you all want leadership so they can change people's lives? They can take us to a promised land that we've been promised for so long that we failed to achieve. And you started by talking about how we've underachieved.
Yes.
Based on your own assessment of wherever you worked. But everybody says what you've just said. That they want this presidency.
But not everybody has capacity. Not everybody has the tenacity of purpose to pursue, because leadership, I can tell you, is a very difficult, risky enterprise. It is also a very lonely position to occupy. And therefore, if you are not strong if you don't have the tenacity of purpose to cling on to what you set out to do, somewhere along the line, you begin wavering and you give up.
Yeah, but most people who have been in this position, and I say most people because we've had a lot over the years, who argue that they've shown the tenacity, they have the capacity. And yet, we are where we are, even worse than before.
Well, the proof is in the eating of the pudding. If you may say you have capacity, you may say you have tenacity, but it is an office that reveals the man. There is a famous saying in Latin, magistratus virus ostendit. It is the office that reveals the man. So you will face the conditions, you will face the situation. But if you don't have grit, as the American will say, if you don't have gumptions, if you don't have a clarity of planning, somewhere along the line, reality, the difficulties of reality will upend you. And you see, I remember a statement by the former president of this republic, Nkrumah. It says, he talks about the reality carrying the facts of life, the stubborn facts of life, he said, difficulties carrying the stubborn facts of life to the shores of reality. So a lot of people will come with good intentions, yes. A lot of people will come with a certain capacity, yes. A lot of people will come with tenacity, yes. But the task itself will break you as you go along. I have had the good fortune of being in very difficult and tough situations throughout my banking careers. And the fact that I was able to survive a lot of them gives me a certain impression of myself. On Wall Street, my second year on Wall Street is when we had one of the major crashes. And the crash, in my estimation, that as it affected the Bank of New York, emanated from the department which I had been assigned. The head of my department that very day had a heart attack and died in the office on the floor. That's how shocking the events were. Poor me. I had just come out of management training. I had to step in his shoes. Not that experienced, but I knew that this was going to be my doing or undoing. Having gone through that experience, I learned a lot of lessons. And it was trial by fire. So it gave me the guts, the gumptions to face a lot of other things that probably most mortals wouldn't face.
Running a bank, even if it's on Wall Street, even if it's in New York, it's quite different from running a country. In fact, if that's the case, our current finance minister will be the most successful. He also was in banking. He's an investment banker. The evidence shows that he's actually possibly been one of the most challenged we've had.
See, the same experience will test two different people, two different ways, and their outcomes will be different. The same experience will test two different people in two...
So what makes you different from Ken Ofori-Atta? All of you were in Wall Street.
No, what makes it... Why are some bankers successful and others unsuccessful?
Well, I'm asking you, what makes you different? Because the latest example we've had of somebody who worked in the bank, who came with flying testimonial.
I will not pass judgment on other people.
You're showing us credentials similar to what we've just witnessed. You can't fault us by looking at those.
My credentials are different. My credentials are different.
It's very similar.
I don't want to talk about other people. He set up his own boutique bank, right? I worked in a huge organization. The experiences are completely different. If you work in say, a Goldman Sachs, right? And then you or compared to someone who work in BlackRock, there are two different types of experiences, it produces two different outcomes. So my experience shaped me in a certain way that I appreciate, right? It gave me a sense of timing. It gave me a sense of exercising authority in fluid situations. It gave me a sense of empathy, because look, between the 86 crash and the subsequent crash, I had the unpleasant duty of laying off so many people.
Yeah, but that's not the same as running a country like Ghana. They're two different worlds.
You can bring, look, there is nothing that will train you to be a president of a country. You can't go to school to learn to be a president of a country. You bring various experiences from your background and your life. And those are the things that you put together to run a country. Running a country requires that you understand the history of the people, their inherited rights and liberties, their values, and all of those things. But you must first and foremost have a certain empathy. I read, when Lyndon Johnson became the president after the assassination of John F. Kennedy, he took his Secretary for Domestic Policy, Joe Carroll. He took him to where he was born. Now, people don't realize that Lyndon Johnson was born in a ghetto, difficult circumstances. He took him there and he says, now listen to me. Any policy you make must fit and benefit these people, otherwise don't bring it to me. All right? That shaped him, and that is how come, in spite of all the issues surrounding Lyndon Johnson, he was able to pass some of the most progressive laws and changes in American history.
What does that got to do with Boakye Agyarko?
It has a lot to do with Boakye Agyarko, because the life I have gone through, well, poor kid my mother is from Krobodumasi, my father, Jamasi and Aguna, born in one of the hottest places in Kumasi, Ashanti New Town, where even as kids, during the UP days, NLM UP days, the house we lived in was dynamited about 3 times. Little boy, I saw all of those. Before I turned 6, my father had to flee into exile, political exile under Kwame Nkrumah. And my poor mother, who was teaching primary school, had to look after 5 of her own children and 4 of my father's children. Tough times. But my mother, God bless her soul, was able to keep all of us together with a lot of love and empathy. I remember my late brother, Kwabra, when we are eating, he will steal meat from what we are eating, not that we had enough, and sneak out to Abbey's Park. A friend of his will be waiting out there because that friend may not have eaten the whole day. And he said, Kwabra, now what me? Also, no so needy. But that was teachings from my mother. And it affected all of us. So all these upbringing, my personal life, through Methodist Primary, through Infanspim School, and in my getting shot at Air Force Station, my early years in America, very lonely years in America, going to school, working, and keeping to myself. So
all that had prepared you to be president?
Exactly.
You've been campaigning, and under the theme, restoring hope.
Yes.
That is to suggest that hope is lost, that you want to restore.
Yes. Look, let us not kid ourselves.
Hope is lost.
Let us not kid ourselves.
That's a bold statement. It's an indictment on your own government. Then
no, I'm not.
The government.
I'm not even talking. Party. I'm not talking. The hope, the lost hope in Ghana, did not start with Akufo-Addo's government.
Well, you've had 6 years. Your party in government.
Yes.
And you haven't restored hope.
Yes.
You're actually saying that they will exhaust the 8 years and hope will still be lost. That is an indictment of the party in government.
No, you're taking it wrong. I will refer you to the Dudley Sears and Ross report of 1952. That is when hope was lost.
No, but I put it to you that we elected your party
I agree.
to fix that. So going as far back as that suggests that you are actually trying to excuse your party's failures.
No, running a country is not running a corporate on a quarterly basis. Right? There are deep-seated problems inside our
That is
country.
why we elected
And
the NPP, a government you were a part of.
These deep-seated imbalances don't get solved overnight. Let me give you an example.
Well, but what you're suggesting is you haven't actually scratched the surface at all. Hope is so lost.
Look, at the personal levels, people's lives, at the corporate levels, parties, families, even at the national level, we are in some flux, right? This country has gone through a lot. We are in a flux. Add Ukraine, add COVID and all of that.
You're joining the bandwagon.
No.
Explaining away the failures of your party in government.
How do you jump to such a conclusion?
But you cited Ukraine.
You see, the minute I say Ukraine, you jump to a conclusion.
But I'm asking a question based on the rhetoric and the chorus that had come from party officials and government officials.
Listen to what I am saying and not jump to conclusions. First, I said, you throw in. That's what I said. We've gone through a lot. But even you throw in these latest dislocations, Ghana as a country has gone through a lot. And we have to be patient with ourselves and systematically build up gradually and restore our hope.
But you've had 8 years.
8 years for where we are coming from. You don't restore hope suddenly. You don't.
But you haven't even begun the process of doing so. From what you're saying, you will be restoring the hope.
It's a process. It's a process, right? Democracy is a process. When you establish democracy, you think.
So you're happy with what your government had done?
We have done well. We haven't done all that we could do.
You've done well.
We've done well, yes.
Where you've left us with an economic crisis, the worst economic crisis in the generation, historic inflation rate over 54%. Bank of Ghana lost historic again, 60.8 billion. People are talking currently about losing their investments with government because now they're having to take haircuts. And in many people's lives in the last 30 years, they haven't experienced that before. You're saying that is well?
What was the situation before 2019? Well, in my own ministry, we were able to stabilize power, right? Reduce the AFLS from 320 hours to 41 hours. We were able to reduce electricity prices, right? We were able to introduce the cash waterfall mechanism, which was to help pay power generators.
You introduced the cash waterfall mechanism?
Yes, it became my nickname in cabinet. The cash waterfall mechanism, which I borrowed from banking into the energy sector. We introduced the electricity market oversight panel to make sure that we had a system of dispatching the cheapest power before the most expensive comes on queue. So we did a lot of those things, right? A lot of them very technical that your audience may not fully appreciate. But be honest with yourself and say before 2019, between 2017 and 2019, was it downhill? We started going downhill from 2019. I agree.
Yes.
I agree that certain macroeconomic fiscals and fundamentals were not handled right. Right? I also agree that the whole problem cannot be laid only to the doorstep of Ukraine and COVID. Right? But guess what? That's why I always refer people to the Dudley Sears report, Dudley Sears and Ross report. As far back as 1952, these two gentlemen who were brought in by President Nkrumah to look at the fundamental structure of our economy and how to correct it, wrote a fantastic report that is as relevant today as it was when it was written. We, since 1952, have shied away from that report. Let me give you an example. It talks about the imbalances in the financial architecture of our budget. Every year, since 1961 to date, there are only 4 years that we've had budget surpluses. Why? Because we play smoke and mirrors. We know that the revenue we are projecting, we will not get. We put it in the budget.
Yeah, but
we will know.
But you sound like a broken record. This is something that everybody before you have said.
Yeah, but
your party, you put solutions in the manifesto and hasn't still produced the outcomes that
you're not being patient enough.
No, but I'm saying
if you let
for audiences, they would have heard what you're saying.
No,
your party says
so. Let me.
They're going to move some taxation to productivity, which is exactly what you're saying.
In the middle of a sentence, you deny the audience the opportunity of a full information. What I'm saying is that the solution of that problem is going to involve all the political actors, not one party. It's going to have to be a national dialogue saying that the fundamental architecture of our budget is wrong. Don't make it a matter.
Let me put it to you. We voted for your party. We brought your party into government to fix precisely what you're talking about.
No, you see what will happen.
Do you at least accept that your party has failed at least based on the tax given it?
No. What you are advocating is temporary band-aid solutions, right? So I come into office and knowing that I'm not going to get the cooperation of the other side, will do smoke and mirrors and go away.
So you're doing smoke and mirrors?
No, please. I think that...
No, I'm just asking for clarity.
No. What I'm saying is simply this, that we as a people, all shades of Ghanaians, must come to the realization that there are certain fundamental problems that transcend politics. And therefore, there need to be a national dialogue on some of these matters in order to accept the restructuring.
Fine, but you must first take responsibility because you were voted for. Before you say everybody else come and help. The question I'm asking you is, if you win your party's nod, if you then become the flag bearer, you'll be running on your party's record. Are you proud of this record in the last 8 years?
I am proud of the party's record.
In government?
Over
the last 8 years?
Albeit there are difficulties that you cannot run away from, right? But such is life.
So and I'm saying overall, you are proud of that record that you've been running on?
Yes, I am.
And that record stands you in good stead to win, if you win your party's nod?
What is the alternative you're talking about?
I'm just asking the question.
Yes, that's why I'm saying that...
So you're proud of your record?
The Ghanaian is not going to be behaving like you are. The Ghanaian is going to say, this is their record, this is the alternate record, which one do I go for?
You talk about record,
and
I talk about the NDCs, you're comparing yourself to the NDC.
I'm suggesting to you that I am proud of the NPP's record in spite of some of the difficulties that we've gone through.
Which NPP's record are you proud of?
There's a Kufuor record. There's an Akufo-Addo record.
I'm talking about, no, you're not going to run on Kufuor's record. You're going to run on Akufo-Addo's record.
Why not?
Well, you were part of his first.
No. So tell me why Kufuor's record is irrelevant.
Why is that a record that you'll be running on?
Tell me why Kufuor's record is
No, you
irrelevant.
mentioned this.
No,
you mentioned it.
Kufuor's record was an NPP record.
Yeah, but why are you running on Kufuor's record and not Akufo-Addo's record?
I said Kufuor and...
No, Kufuor cannot be part of the record you're running on.
Why not?
But why do you want to claim him as part of your last 8 years?
No, why am I? I'm not going to run on 8 years. I'm saying you said the MPP record. You didn't say
I said the MPP in government. I'm talking about the last 8 years.
No, that's, you see, don't stop playing with words. The MPP record in government, Kufuor was in government, he was MPP.
No, but look, I'm curious.
What you
have 8 years and you're running for president, assuming you win in 2024. You're saying that you're going to be pitching to Ghana Kufuor's record in addition to Akufo-Addo's record.
You forget something, and it's forgive my language. It may be short-sighted.
It actually shows me an as the last 8 years as you are.
No. It shows a certain short-sightedness. You see, the policies that emanate from that the MPP puts forth emanates from our ideology. Right? It emanates from our ideology, our belief system, and our understanding of what governance is about. So, Kufuor, believing in that ideology, certain policies will come out of there. Are we going to throw away the fact that Kufuor had certain policies that benefited the country? It's an MPP record. Likewise, look, I'm sure that if Kufuor's government had failed, you and the others like yourself will be jumping up and down and calling, hold it, and calling the failures of Kufuor's government.
Let me ask the question based on the current realities. Which MPP record in the last 8 years are you proud of?
Why should I? MPP is MPP.
Which MPP's record?
I am proud.
In government in the last 8 years are you proud of?
I am proud of both MPP government.
I'm asking a question about the last 8 years. Which of the MPP record in the last 8 years are you proud of?
I am proud of both of them.
But I'm not asking you about the last MPP government. I'm asking you about this MPP government that you were part of.
No. You listen.
I'm asking a very specific question. I asked you the first question, you brought in Kufuor, that's fine. I'm asking a very specific question about the last 8 years. Which of that record in this last 8 are you proud of?
Which record of the 8 years
are you proud of?
It's the entire record that we are considering.
Of the last 8 years, are you proud of?
Are you asking that we cherry pick? Oh, I'm proud of free SHS. I'm proud of this.
I'm just simply asking a question. We have 8 years. You were part of the first 4. I'm asking you, which of that record in the last 8 years are you proud of?
It's a package. You see, you're asking the wrong questions, and therefore you'll get the wrong answer.
No, but you said that you are proud of the MPP's record in government.
Yes.
And I'm asking you, which record exactly are you talking about in the last 8 years?
It's the entire MPP record.
Of what? Specify. Which part of that record are you proud of in the last 8 years?
I'm proud of, you see, you are asking me to cherry pick, which is not. I'm proud of the energy sector record.
Which is what? What exactly there are you proud of in the energy sector record? Because you were a sector minister.
I just told you that one, we kept the lights on, right? Have you simply forgotten the ravages of Dumso? We kept the lights on, and we are still keeping the lights on. And you think we shouldn't be proud of that? We reduced electricity prices, and you think we shouldn't be proud of that? We introduced the cash waterfall mechanism that regularized the payment of IPPs. And you think we shouldn't be proud of that? Free SHS. Despite its difficulties, when America introduced free senior high school, when they studied what was going on in Argentina, and at the turn of the 19th century, they introduced free high school. Look at the chaos it caused, but gradually they got out of it. Because you see, human design of policy will have inherent biases and triggers of failure. It is your duty to be able to look at these things and manage and correct them. So are you saying that we shouldn't be proud of free SHS?
I just simply ask you which
of
these facts, as far as the record is concerned, are you proud of? Now you've mentioned a few. You've mentioned the energy sector. You've mentioned cash water 4. You've mentioned free SHS.
I mentioned the construction of health facilities in this country.
Which health facilities are you talking about?
The Agenda 111.
Well, which is currently a struggle to finish.
What you think that running a country is a walk in the park?
Well, I'm just telling you what the facts are.
Running
You've
the
extended
studio.
to 2027 because it's tough to
running
do.
your studio. It's not a walk in the park.
Well, that's why leaders
That
put
is
themselves
why
out to be voted for.
that is
It can't
why,
be a complaint.
That is why
We know that. That's why we gave it to you, your party, to fix it.
Look,
we know it's going to be tough.
111 facilities, close to 80 have been completed, or very near completion. And you think that is not an achievement?
You seem to be very proud of the work that Nana Akufo-Addo had done. And yet, you're on record to say that as far as your relationship with him isn't that great.
Look, you people focus on trivia. Excuse me.
How is that trivia?
What has my personal relationship with another got to do with national policy?
He is the president of the republic. Whose record on which you go around for president? You just stated that.
Your line of this particular line of question I find very offensive and disappointing. Look,
why?
Why? Because you see, you reduce national policy and governance to the petty personal levels. We don't have to be friends to aim at developing the country. We don't. We don't.
But I haven't seen this. I'm simply asking a question.
Look, you have to believe in the same thing, believe in this country and its development. So when you narrow it down to personal relationship, you are talking trivia.
I'm asking a question about what you're proud of.
No.
You've talked about his record.
You're
going to be running on your own record as former energy minister?
No.
True or false? You run on your record, of course. Look, you come to this job with a CV, even did you get it? You come to the job with a CV. That CV includes your record in government. You don't dispute that?
Yeah, no.
Good. And you come also, because you were part of his government, also on his CV, on his record. You don't dispute that?
Look at my CV.
You don't dispute that? His
Hold it.
affects your chance of either you win or lose. It does matter. And that's what I'm asking you the question.
It doesn't matter for me. Look at my CV. Right? My years in government is less than 2 years out of 25 years of stellar performance. You want to ignore all of that?
But that is why when we started, we spoke extensively about your record as a banker. I'm just narrowing down to one aspect of that record.
You did not, you see, you did not even delve into that past.
No, but we did. Unfortunately, we have just an hour, so I cannot spend all the time talking about your bank. And I'm asking you, I need to ask a question about your record, which you admit is going to be part of what you'll be running on.
Yes, my record will be from management and investment consultant.
Yeah, but also,
hold it.
Your record as an energy minister. We've talked about your finance and economy.
Why do you think you have to answer the questions for me?
But I'm asking you a specific question.
Yes,
about your record as an energy minister.
No. You see, you keep shifting the goalposts.
No, but that's what I asked.
Your question was my record, and I said go back.
And I narrowed down and I asked you, do you dispute that you'll be running also on your record as energy? And you said yes.
Of course.
And that's why I'm asking you a question about that. My question to you is, you admit that obviously is going to be part of the assessment going forward.
Why not?
Okay. Now that you've said that, when you were there, you did a lot of things. You talked about the cash waterfall system. But also, one of the things that you also did, and you're also very proud of, you talked about the debt situation then in the sector, which you wanted to deal with it. You tackled it. In fact, you started this whole conversation around the concession arrangement for ECG, to try and get ECG to be better, right? I'm just curious, the fact that something you started, did it quite yield the right results that you expected? I mean, subsequently, we know what happened with the ECG. I'm talking about the PDS subject.
We inherited PDS.
Yes. My question to you is, if you look back on what you started and how it ended, looking at your record, proud of how it's ended? With the ECG still, in the last few months, the only thing we're talking about is ECG struggle.
That is not within my control. By the time I left the ministry, the PDS had not been signed.
You started the conversations.
Yes, I started the conversation. Wanted to take it in a particular direction. Met stiff resistance from ECG workers and staff. Right? Foot dragging, we wouldn't agree to this, we wouldn't agree to that. By the time I left office, the compact had not come close to being signed. So that is not part of my record that you want, right? I started a conversation. Compact was not signed by the time I left. Whether it is successful or not is not at my charge. What I will say is that I would rather ECG is not operated the way it is operated now.
What do you mean by that?
There must be an element of privatization in ECG. There must be, that hopefully will increase the level of two things. Level of infusion, cash infusion into ECG. That will also change some of its practices. For instance, when I was in investment banking, anytime a utility, a distribution company was floating instruments, we fought over them because these are cash cows. ECG is not, right? ECG is still bedeviled with the problems of not being able to collect its bills, especially problems of the last mile, not being able to collect its bills, systems losses, inability to raise the capital to invest to make it a modern disco. When I came in, the assessment was that ECG needed a cash infusion of $3 billion to move it into a modern disco. Nobody had that kind of money in terms of this country and the government, right? In my time, the system's losses was around 27% when PURC was looking at an 11 to 12% systems losses. Uncollected bills amounted to 1.2 billion annually, right? Even government indebtedness to ECG was huge.
It was. How do you fix that? What's your proposition?
First of all, we tried something. I proposed something. I left office before it was considered. Government, you have to create a notional balance sheet for government. Government has assets sitting somewhere and liabilities sitting somewhere else. Notionally, you should be able to say that these government assets can be used legally to offset its liabilities elsewhere. And the example I was using was that, look, we have oil liftings from 10 and Jubilee. Government owes about 2 billion cedis in past energy bills. Government accumulates bills of 20 million cedis every month of unpaid bills. So why don't we do something with the liftings, either a contango or forward sale for 2 years, get the money and wipe out the government debt so that ECG has a cleaner balance sheet upon which it can begin to raise its own.
So find money elsewhere to clear it, and then you can move forward.
So those are things that I think we all should be looking at.
So if you get a door, that's something you push.
It was one thing I put on.
And you said you didn't succeed because the workers didn't like it.
No.
I think you
The
mentioned
PDS.
the PDS. Yeah, the PDS. Yeah, the PDS. The workers
didn't like it. This financial engineering didn't see the light of day.
Why?
Well, it takes time to develop all the facets of it. And once I left it.
Okay, let's come back to the politics in just 2 minutes before we wrap up. You're campaigning, right? Yes. I mean, I've heard many suggest that this campaign is not starting off on a level playing field, and that, in fact, either you or some of the other candidates have all reported this to the party in terms of you wish the field will be match level in terms of the way the thing is done. But there's also the sense that this whole machine is favoring Dr. Bawumia, and also a suggestion that the 9 of you are ganged up against him. Is there anything like that?
Again, it is one of my disappointments with interpretation by journalists. First of all, this question of level playing field started 1993 when we first wrote a code of conduct, to the extent that BJ Darocha had to rush to Kumasi, not Kumasi, Echuma Ngwabieja, to stop certain things that were going on. Right? It was then that we said, the party said, we need to have a code to regulate our behavior in this competitive environment. So we've been writing code of conduct since 1993. Unfortunately,
and revised it.
Unfortunately, it's not been working.
So
this, to date, it's not been working. All right. That doesn't mean we give up. If you try and you don't succeed, try again. We shouldn't reverse the adage and say, if you try and you don't succeed, blame somebody. If we try and you don't succeed, you try again. So we are trying. Now, this question about gang up. The conversation was really about whether things were happening the way we wanted. And I said, no, it's not happening the way we want. And that some of the things that are happening, some of us, about 7 or 8 of us, have been discussing amongst ourselves on how to get them fixed. Now, it will be very strange that all of us who are leaders of this party, seeing things going wrong, and we say we will not discuss amongst ourselves.
What's going wrong?
What's going wrong?
What was going wrong?
Code of conduct, for example.
Was not being followed.
Was not being followed. The processes that we had to go through. It looks like every electoral cycle, these processes change. And we'll argue that we have to standardize these processes. So those discussions were going on between us. When that came to its end, then the question suddenly shifted to whether there was an establishment candidate. And I said, yes, it's the vice president. No lie about it. Then as the discussion proceeded, the question was, if there is a runoff, now listen carefully, if there is a runoff, do we see ourselves cooperating against the establishment?
Like the history of your party shows you've done in the past.
And I said that we have not discussed that. It's not that we go and sit in some place and discuss these matters. Phone. Kobra Japan, Jogate were my juniors in secondary school. Alancha Martin started the nursery Queen Ants all the way through.
So was a conclusion. Would you come together in case of runoff?
No, please. I don't like you answering my questions for me. What I said...
It's a question, by the way.
No, what I said, rhetorical. What I said was that we have not sat down to discuss that matter. However, given the way things work, I can see it happening.
What happening?
You see, when there's a runoff, it means all others have been eliminated. We are left with two. Right? Say establishment candidate and a non-establishment candidate. And the question was, would the non-establishment candidate, after the runoff, meaning they are no longer part of the competition, ally themselves to the non-establishment candidate to face off the establishment candidate. And I said, we haven't discussed any such thing. However, with the way things evolve, I can see it happening. Now, all politics is alliance. Anyone who forgets that has lost an understanding of politics, right? People forget that in 1996, CPP and NPP formed an alliance, the Great Alliance, to face off. Now, the children of Nkrumah and the children of Buzia are now forming an alliance to go and face off NDC. So there is nothing wrong or strange about political alliance.
Okay. And in this case, just for clarity, the alliance could possibly be all of you possibly coming up against the establishment candidate.
I said it's a possibility. It can happen.
Okay.
But then suddenly you have journalists couching headlines like the Gang of Nine, as if we are a bunch of criminals sitting somewhere, mafiosos doing the unthinkable.
I'm grateful that you joined me. All the best on Saturday.
My pleasure.
Okay. Enjoy the rest of your evening.